Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Meredith Bond, and I am the chair of the Ask Me Anything Task Force. We are welcoming you this evening to the 18th session of the Ask Me Anything series, going strong on our third year now. We have an exciting topic tonight and a wonderful group of panelists. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attendance. Start out with a little bit of Zoom etiquette. If you could just please stay on mute. Our panelists will unmute as they are answering questions. If you have something that you want more information about or a question that we didn't get to, we'll try to address those at the end if there's time. Our time together is 1 hour tonight, so we will end at 9 p.m. Eastern time, but that doesn't mean something can't get answered. So please reach out in the chat if we don't get to something that you were interested in. And I will also be sharing contact information for our panelists in a little bit. So part of our work at the National Court Reporters Foundation and offering the Ask Me Anything series is to make sure that it continues. Part of having the series continue is advertising it. So for those in the audience that don't have their cameras on, you don't have to turn your camera on if you don't want to, but we're going to take a picture for social media. It really helps us spread the word and show that what we're doing, the time that we're spending together. So we're going to have Sandy Narup, a member of our committee, take the picture at this time. And just another second to have those that want to turn on their cameras to be in the picture. And we have a pretty big audience tonight, so it'll probably take 2 pictures to capture everyone. And I'll turn the floor over to Sandy for that.
Okay, everyone ready? Let's see those smiles. And give me just a second to go to the next page. Okay, let's get those smiles again. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. I really appreciate you being our picture taker this evening. It's very helpful. So why am I excited to talk to you? Because I have some friends and some coworkers and some very knowledgeable people that I reached out to, that the Ask Me Anything Task Force reached out to say, can you answer some questions for us about workplace etiquette? So I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves to you directly. And Matthew Drager is going to be first. So not only is he our panelist, one of our panelists this evening, he's also a member of the Ask Me Anything Task Force. So I'll have them tell you who they are, where they are, what they do, what their experience is, if they hold any certifications, and we will start with Matthew.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Matthew Drager. I am a retired court reporter. I spent 27 years in capital crime criminal court in Detroit. I have been teaching advanced court reporting for way more years than I care to remember, but I still enjoy it. I freelanced for 6 years specializing in medical malpractice before I went to work in the court system. And I started writing real-time in court in 1986. So I've been writing real-time for a very, very long time. Other than that, I spend a great deal of time volunteering in my community. So there you have it.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to turn to Michael Boulay.
Thank you, Meredith. It's great to be here. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Boulay. I'm currently a freelance court reporter in Henderson/Las Vegas. I've been reporting for about, this is my 40th year, and 26 of them were in as an official, most of those in Arizona, and about 14 freelancing. I was blessed to come from a family of court reporters. My father and my siblings, 4 of my siblings, my father did it and 4 of my siblings still do it. I'm an RDR, and I've been involved with the state, my Arizona State Association, and the National Court Reporters Foundation and NCRF with volunteering, including 2 terms as president of the Arizona Court Reporters Association. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to the evening.
Thank you very much. Such wonderful service. Next, Michael Sherray.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Sherray. I've been reporting for just under 30 years. It seems a whole lot longer than that for some reason. I'm an RPR. I was one of the last people to get the CMRS before the NCRA stopped offering that. But it was such a great class. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Um, and then I'm also a state. I'm from Florida, so I'm from. I have a state certification that's a voluntary certification. We're a voluntary certification state. I'm immediate past president, which if you're ever president, the best words are immediate past president. And Cindy, you'll get to realize this next year. But anyway, my brother's on here too, and I talked him into going to court reporting school with me when I think we were still in high school, and I made him sign up and I said, this would be so much fun if we do this together. And he was so hungry. He just said, I will sign up for anything if you get me out of here in the next 5 minutes. And so that's it. And here we are 30 years later. And we're both rocking it. He's a great real-time reporter. And now we're part of Diamond Court Reporting. There's several Diamond Court Reportings. We're part of the Florida Diamond Court Reporting, not the New York or the California or the Arizona. We're the Florida Court, Diamond Court Reporting. And we're having just a lot of fun. This is a great profession, and we're super excited. It never gets old. This profession never ever gets old. So anyway, that's it. That's my little pitch.
I love it. Some may not know what CMRS stood for. I know it's not a current certification, but
Yeah, so it's Certified Manager of Reporting Services, and it teaches you how to be sort of a supervisor, not even sort of a supervisor. I was at the time I was applying to be the manager of the official court reporters in our judicial circuit. And I didn't think that I was going to get it because there was somebody that had more veteran experience. So, but I thought, well, you know what? I want at least the title in my name because I was going to at least be a supervisor. And I was the youngest person in our department. And I knew from past experience being a young supervisor that it's sometimes difficult to get people to respect you as a supervisor. But I thought if I had that title, I would at least get the respect. And boy, did it work. So I went there. It was at that point, it was two different classes. I guess back in the day, it was four different classes. It's such a long story. I can't do it, but it's such a great freaking story. But anyway, but I'll hit me up another day, because I don't want to take up too much time. But I ended up you get a year. You have homework every night. Then you have a year to work on a paper, and it was a little tedious, but I did it. I turned the paper in it took me a whole year to do the paper, and I turned it in and got glowing remarks from the instructors. And anyway, it was fun. But anyway, that's what it stands for. They teach you how to be a supervisor and manage.
I love your passion. I love it.
Yeah. I'm such a geek. I'm not afraid to say.
So maybe long story short, that's one explanation for why certifications are really awesome.
Yeah.
Turning next to Richard for your bio.
Hello, everybody. I'm the good twin. I'm Richard Sherray. I too am an RPR and an FPRC, which is for Florida, and also part of Diamond Court Reporting. I am not a CMRS, but I was one of the people that respected Michael as my supervisor when we worked together at the courthouse. I am past president of the Florida Court Reporters Association, and Michael is immediate past president. And I've been reporting as long as Michael has, actually a year more because I graduated first. And that's it. And I love being a real-time reporter. And I just got a verdict, and that's the best feeling too, when you know that appeal is going to come in and you're going to make a whole lot of money on it.
Nice. Next, I'm going to turn to Tammy McGee.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tammy McGee. I am in my 35th year of reporting. I'm in Alexandria, Virginia now, but I was in Ohio my whole career until about a year ago. I started working at the House of Representatives, so I work in Congress. And before that, I did an official, freelance, captioning. I've done a little bit of everything, and then started at the House it was a year ago, June, and I have my RMR, CRR, and CRC.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. And lastly, Joe Gale.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Gale. I am a cart captioner in Chicago. I started my freelance reporting career in 1980. Oh my God, 45 years ago. I know it's hard to believe because I look so young. I was a freelance reporter, and in 2004, I decided I needed a change, so I started transitioning into cart. And I did cart and reporting for about 6 years. And then in 2010, I decided I didn't want to report anymore. I've been strictly a cart captioner since 2010. I love what I do. I forgot to mention I'm an RPR, CRR, and CRC, and an Illinois CSR.
Absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much. We're going to dive right into the questions that we're going to provide answers for tonight. And we're going to start out with what professional attire is appropriate for work? As you just heard from the bio of our panelists, we have decades of experience, dare I say a little bit on the older side. So grain of salt. We have two advantages to that: years of experience, but also the things we recommend are best practices and maybe different generationally, and we're going to talk about some of those things. So I'm going to start with Tammy because I'm thinking that working in Congress, you probably have the strictest professional attire of any of the places stenographers would work.
Right. We have, I'm on the committee side. We have committee reporters and we have the floor reporters. If you're on the floor, you have to wear a jacket, always. I usually always have a jacket, whether I'm on a committee hearing. I have been on the floor a few times. The committees, if we're actually in a committee hearing, I always wear a jacket. We also do interviews where there's not necessarily members present, and I still do a cardigan or something like that. I never just wear a shirt. I always have some kind of overcoat on. So it depends on the setting, but definitely be loaded with jackets if you're going to work in Congress, because you'll be using them. Pretty much a requirement. And I don't, if I wear a skirt, I do wear pantyhose or some kind of tights.
Thank you very much. I'm going to get back to the pantyhose dilemma in a little bit. Michael Boulay, I'm going to have to use your last name since we have two Michaels on our panel, but do you have recommendations for professional attire in the workplace?
Well, I do, and I will say it's been my experience that there are different standards in different communities. The bigger cities, I think, tend to have a little higher, there's a little more formality. In some of the smaller towns here in the Southwest, it can be very informal. But personally, I always wear a jacket, and I always have my shoes shined, and I always have a pressed shirt, because I want to feel good about myself when I walk in. And sometimes, and if I'm going to a setting where I know folks are more formal, like if it's federal court, or sometimes when you're familiar with clients, you just know everybody's wearing a suit there. I can wear a suit too, and so there's a lot of flex in the closet, let's say, and but you always want to be, you always want to feel good about what you're wearing, and so I tend to dress over a little bit, and I like having the jacket because the conference rooms are sometimes cold. I used to wear a tie all the time, and then since COVID, I haven't so much. But I've still got them, and I have them available if the job calls for it. So there's a lot of different ways you could dress, given the circumstance, in my opinion. But you always want to be at the higher end of what's acceptable.
So can you give an example of the outfit you would wear that's not a suit?
I'll wear slacks and a blazer or a sport coat, and and a button-down shirt, of course. That's sort of standard uniform. Sometimes I'll wear a nice pair of jeans with a pair of loafers and a button-down shirt and a jacket. That could be kind of a casual look that's actually kind of sharp. So everybody has their own style, right?
Okay.
That's
Thank you for the example. Richard, I'm going to turn to you next. You spent a lot of time, I know you're working in freelance right now, but a lot of time in the courtroom. What do you have for appropriate professional attire?
I happen to love suits and ties. So when I was an official, the to back up, a judge once said to Michael before I started that, oh, you don't have to wear a suit and tie every day. I don't hold court personnel to the same standard as the attorneys. Well, we didn't like that answer because when you dress better, you get treated better. And so we have a lot of clothes. Or even if we weren't going to be in court that day, because you never know when something last minute pops up, suit, tie, all the time. Now in the private world, I'm still dressed like that. I don't over Zoom, of course, I'll be a little casual. If I'm in person, though, I'm always in a suit. Because also you don't know when you're walking out of that job, you get another last minute hearing. I'll never walk into a courtroom without a jacket and without a tie. I've seen a couple of one guy in particular, I'll leave nameless, not wear a tie to court, and I nobody has said anything, but I kind of cringe at that. I think we we should be the way the attorneys would dress, we should be dressing the same way too. Just like any expert witness shows up, they're always dressed up too. But that's just me. Um, but yeah, if it's people we know, it's over Zoom, or if it's in our office and I know the people, just like what Michael Belay was saying. And you could be a little more casual, but even if I'm a little more casual, I'm never like in jeans and I always have a tie on. Maybe I don't have the jacket, but I always have the tie on, but that's mostly because I have 200 ties in my closet and I like to wear them.
Thank you very much. Joe, I'm assuming that captioning might be a little bit more casual. Is that true? Do you have examples for what attire is appropriate?
Well, when I was captioning on site in college classrooms, which I haven't done since before COVID, I wanted to try to blend in with the students, which is a little difficult when I'm schlepping all that equipment with me, and I'm in many cases old enough to be the student's mother or in some cases grandmother. So I would generally wear jeans when I was doing college classes. Now I'm doing meetings, galas, presentations. For those kind of events, I'll wear a nice pair of pants and a top and maybe a blazer for galas, although in many cases I'm not visible to the people in attendance. I'm generally backstage with the AV crews. So I could probably just about wear anything I wanted to. But in most cases, I'm wearing a pair of pants and a blouse and sometimes a blazer or a sweater. But yes, you're right. It is a little bit less, a little bit more casual.
Wonderful. Thank you for those answers. I want to share as your moderator tonight, in my background working in a courtroom, and I said I would get back to the pantyhose issue. It is definitely the norm in society across the United States today to no longer be wearing pantyhose to work, whatever you want to call them, tights, just regular hose. So I did a little research to find out, what is acceptable, what's the go-to resource for whether or not you should wear your pantyhose. And time again, when I was looking things up, I saw in professional settings pantyhose may still be called for. In highly traditional environments, pantyhose may still be called for. So while many people don't wear pantyhose to work today, dressing female with a skirt, different, obviously, when you're wearing a pantsuit kind of thing. Just with a grain of salt, remember exactly what I believe it was Michael Boulay mentioned. know your client, know your audience. Is this someone that you want to have you call back again? Is this somebody that you are trying to impress? Is this a client that you want to add to your people that are going to call you for future work? So while you may go on the more casual side because it's acceptable in society, you may want to elevate your attire to the next level so that you can earn new business, which is money in your pocket. And sometimes even think about what's your best outfit that you would wear to a job interview and start what you're going to wear to work from there, and then adjust it per situation, clientele, things like that. So that was my 2 cents on pantyhose, because, while I used to say that every court reporter should wear them to work, I don't make that recommendation anymore. All right. Stephanie asked, how do you sit wearing a dress? Sometimes it's hard with the rider between your legs. I have the story from hell for that, because there was a court reporter in our courthouse who didn't have her underwear on, and she had that machine pulled up between her legs, and the deputy was very upset because all day long that was his view. So longer dresses, where the machine tripod can go over the fabric of the dress, is very helpful. Some people try to sit sideways so that their knees are closed. But that's the kind of, issue you have to deal with is, what's the view from the person on the other side? And Matthew has his hand up, so I will turn to him for an answer as well.
Well, I just wanted to say that rule of thumb, having a revolving door of interns and people in the courthouse, if you can wear it to the club, don't wear it to the courthouse.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Good rule of thumb.
Absolutely. Okay. So okay, never mind. We're gonna switch to the next question. Like I said, if as we work through our evening, we don't get to something that you wanted to talk about, you have the option to put it in the chat or to reach out to us after. So I am gonna ask each of our panelists, when you're not speaking, if you could put your work contact, email, work phone number that you're willing to be contacted at in the chat, so that those of you in the audience, if you would like to talk to someone one-on-one, maybe a mentoring conversation, maybe more questions, please feel free to reach out. We're here for you, not just this evening, but going forward. So you have that opportunity. We're going to talk next about how do you prepare or prep to go on the record. So a big part about workplace etiquette is showing up to work prepared. So I will turn to Michael and ask for your recommendations for how do you prep? And you have the advantage of sharing freelance and court prep.
Are you talking to me, Michael, or Michael Boulay?
Oh, Michael Charest. You couldn't see me looking at you because I was looking right at your eyes.
So at the courthouse as an official, which I have to say I got a lot of I, I got a lot of great advice from that, doing that for 19 years, because I carry that over to my freelance world. Like you can go into the court files, at least in Florida. I think it's the same way in most states, because when I do Zoom jobs for out of state work, I do the same thing, and I'm able to get on the clerk sites. You go to the clerk sites, you can pull up witness lists and what the motions are, whatever their um whatever the prep is for the upcoming hearing, and then you can make great word lists and you get all kinds of information from that. If it's like an affiliate job, like another agency sent us the work, we just go right to them and say you need to give us some transcripts from the previous reporters so that we can get prepared. I think a lot of times people are afraid to do real time because they don't know how to do the prep work for that. And um, like Richard just did a real-time job, and because he was able to collect transcripts from the depositions from that the other reporters had done, you were able to put together a really great word list, and then you do it days before, night before. Those of you that have sat in our jury selection seminars where we can do job dictionaries on the fly, and we're writing real time, a room full of 100 people, and everything's coming up. We're doing speaker designations. It's been so successful. Attorneys are literally reaching out to us to say, I heard, even though they're not necessarily using our firm, they're reaching out to say, I heard that you do this. Can you cover my jury selection? Or we'll have agencies all over the country saying, I heard that you can do this. Can you do our jury selection? Or so the better preparation you do, it just makes you stand out. This is something that we can do as court reporters, as stenographers, that other technologies can't do in this capacity. So anyway, so we use those tools. Whether it's the transcripts, whether it's going to the clerk site, whether it's I just did a trial last week and I did all the depositions and I was like, this sounds familiar. This case was so freaking old. And then I went through it. I'm like, oh yeah, I did all the depositions like a year and a half ago. And I went through all my transcripts. And so I love that our agency does that where it's like, okay, you did all the depositions. We're going to keep you on the trial. Thank you for that, because I don't need to start from, ground zero kind of thing. And then anyway, that's it. I could talk forever, so I'll shut up.
No, it's okay. The prep is super important. Tammy, when you're going on the record in a hearing in Congress, do you get access to material to prep for that?
Usually we do. Each committee has a website. We also have a committee repository website, and they will list the hearing for that day with the witnesses that are going to appear. And most witnesses submit a written statement ahead of time. It's a little sometimes more brief than what their full, they only have 5 minutes. So we do more times than not get that statement ahead of time. And if it's an interview, we usually get the witness's name so we can just look them up, because that's more like a deposition setting instead of a committee hearing. So we can at least Google them and try to get some background and things like that, so we know what we're going to hear.
Thank you. Joe, I'm coming to you next with a question. I've worked my entire career, 10 years as freelance, 25 as an official, and I was told that all the work and time that I spend on preparing a transcript after I take the record, a captioner spends before they go on the record. Is that true? Is that how you prep?
Yes. Getting to the prep part of it, one of the things that I do is, if it's a presentation or a lecture or an interview, I will go on YouTube and look for other presentations that the speakers may have given, and I'll practice with it. I mean, I'm in Rich's 100-day practice group, so that's how I get my practice in. And especially if I don't know the people, if I don't know how they speak, if I don't know if they have an accent, how fast they speak, that's very extremely helpful in prep. And they may use some terminology that I need to add to my dictionary or to a job dictionary. But yes, there's more prep beforehand than afterwards. Once the job is over, I'm basically finished, since I don't have to prepare a transcript.
Thank you very much. Once again, coming back to the theme of our evening, workplace etiquette, best practice, show up really prepared, over prepared. It will make making a record much easier for you, and you'll produce a better product for your clients. Turning next, I'm going to go to Matthew. In school and in your training of new reporters, how are you teaching them to handle difficult situations, like when attorneys get into arguments?
Well, two things I tell everybody. First of all is, if you're going to interrupt or you're going to say anything, do not start your sentence with, I'm sorry. Okay? You're not sorry, you're doing your job. So don't start off by apologizing. And I usually tell everybody to start their sentence off with the word counsel, so that everybody knows who you're addressing. If the witness is talking too fast, you don't want to become engaged with the witness. you want to be engaged with the counsel to have the counsel tell the witness to either speak verbally or to slow down, because otherwise the witness will start talking to you, and then that becomes, problematic to say the least. Also, if people are speaking too fast constantly, and for those of us who have been reporting a long time, we all know that after you tell them, they slow down for 2 questions and then they go right back to their old process. So eventually I will put my hands up in the air, actually, so that everybody can see that I'm not writing. And then I just remind everybody that if they're not going to allow me to make the record, then they're going to get the record that they're allowing me to make. My job is to write the record, not make the record. It's the lawyer's job to make the record. And so I do my best to skill everybody to be prepared for that, because people always talk too fast. People talk over people all the time. And so never start with "I'm sorry," and always start with counsel. Please ask the witness to answer verbally. And because I write real time and have written real time, if it becomes a continuing affair, I have a stroke, and it comes up, answer, parentheses, no verbal response, and I keep going. I mean, after the 7th or 8th time, you know what, now everybody can see it. So if nobody has a problem with it, it's out of my hands. So there you go.
You can't hear me because I was on mute. I like your answer a lot, because when I have to interrupt the proceedings, I'm usually angry. And so starting with counsel is a great way to interrupt the proceedings. I almost always start with an angry wait, and then I write the rest of what I was writing, and then I address, what my issue is as far as fast talking or simultaneous speech. Michael Boulay, what is your situation, or what is your technique handling difficult situations like attorneys arguing?
Well, I tend to be pretty calm about it. I don't get angry, and I don't know why that is. Well, I know why it is because I'm going to be fine at the end of the job no matter what. Like I'll do my best, and I'll like Matthew said, I'll take the record they're making. I'll make it clear to them. I try and they all know what we're doing. The attorneys all know the challenges of our job and the things that make it difficult, which is overlapping, talking too fast, mumbling under, talking too softly. And as Matthew said, attempts to get people to change the way they speak are generally, mostly they're fruitless. Once in a while, somebody will actually hear you and they'll slow down and they'll be wonderful, but that's the exception. For the most part, people talk the way they talk. And so after I give 1 or 2, interruptions to kind of indicate the challenge I'm having, after that, I just turn it inward and say, I got to lock in and push harder to make the best record I can make. There are moments when it becomes unreportable, and just like Matthew, I throw my hands up. And if they're really going at each other aggressively, I just put my hands up and let them figure out that this isn't on the record, and they know that. And whenever somebody will, whenever there's a moment, I'll just tell them I'm happy to take everybody's record, because then it kind of puts it on them that, look, we're not settling anything here today. We're making a record that the judge is going to have to settle. And if you want your argument to have a hearing, you're going to have to make it such that I can capture it. And I find that the more calm I am, that just sort of infuses the room a little bit and takes a little bit of that fear and hostility or whatever it is going on. It's all those emotions. I just try not to take any of that on.
I like that. I like that a lot. Strategy to implement. Okay, we're going to move on to another question, and we're going to talk about sometimes you're in the courtroom off the record. Sometimes you are in the deposition setting off the record. Is it appropriate when the lawyers ask you, What do you think about this case? How am I doing? Did you like their answer? What's the appropriate way to handle chit chat with your clients off the record? And I will turn to Michael Charette.
Okay, so it's difficult. Like in court reporting school, they told you do not do it, do not engage in. It's so hard because you want to have a rapport with people. So this is what I usually do. I answer it based on the court reporter's perception. So when they said, "How am I doing?" I always say, "Oh my God, you spoke so beautifully. You let your witnesses answer. You had a nice pace." So I'm not talking about their case at all. I'm talking about how they made my job. And then usually that works. And then every once in a while they'll say, "Yeah, but what do you think about this, this, and that?" And then I'll just say, if they start asking about the details of their case, I'll just say, "You know what? I was so busy doing my job, I wasn't even paying attention. But thank you so much for making my job so much easier." I just stick to it. It's always about me. It's about the court reporter. So when they're asking the question, this way you can still engage in conversation, but you're not giving up that whole impartial thing, because it's just too awkward, because half the times I want to say to them, "Yeah, you know what, you suck, you don't know what you're doing," but I'm not going to say that either. So I just keep it on me. That's my rule. That's my golden rule.
I like it. I don't know if anyone's heard from the audio, whether or not you can tell, but a thunderstorm has started in Rochester, New York. And I have a dog right now that is losing his mind. He'll be on camera shortly because he's trying to climb into my chair. Just thought I'd share that. Tammy, you have decades more experience than just the year you've worked in Congress. How did you handle the situation where everyone in the room wanted to ask your opinion?
I usually would just find a way to kind of what Michael said. Just, I don't want to come out and say, "Oh my gosh, that was horrible. Your guy's going to be guilty in a heartbeat." I just tried to keep it neutral and just say, "Oh," and it also depends on how well you know him. I worked in a small county, but I would just really try to say, "I'm just neutral. I'm here for both sides." And one of my favorite ways to kind of get the question over with was just say, "I'm the court reporter. I hear stuff the jurors don't hear. So I can't really say where they're going to come from because I know things in the background that they don't know."
Thank you very much. Matthew, how are you instructing students to deal with this issue?
Pretty much the same as Michael said earlier. I was too busy writing the record to pay attention to that. From even working in court, I had fellow court reporters who were put out of courtrooms for even sharing their opinions on a case with a judge. So it is often best to find a great exit from that question, whether you put it on yourself or you put it on daydreaming or you weren't paying enough attention, but always some reason for not being able to answer the question directly for that same reason. Yeah, it's dangerous territory.
Understood. We're gonna segue next into how do you handle a readback? And when I talk about how do you handle a readback, what comes to mind is our gap training. What did we learn in school? What did we learn when we started our job? Implementing it into our workplace situations. And so while we will have our panelists give us an answer to how do you handle a readback, I want everyone to know that there is a great resource available to you, and it's called Career Launcher. The National Court Reporters Foundation has a program where you can take 10 sessions of example, freelance, deposition situations. What do you do when there's an interpreter? What do you do when you're sat in the corner of the room? What do you do when counselors are speaking at the same time? You take the modules, you prepare a transcript, and at the end of the Career Launcher program, you've gone through things that may not happen to you for many years in the workplace because there are unusual situations or things you may not have heard about how to handle in school. So just want to make sure that everybody understands that Career Launcher is also available as an asset to you. And we'll talk a little bit more about career launcher in a minute, but now we're going to answer this question about how do you do a readback? Michael Boulay, do you have an answer to this question?
Well, all I can do is answer the way I read back. So, and I was trained before we had audio sync and audio backups at all. So I learned how to I learned to write it and have it in my notes. And I also, because I was also pushing my speed in school to try and get out faster, I can read my rags pretty well. And so typically I just when they ask me to read back, I'm real timing everything at least to myself, and so it's always right there. It's ready to go. I typically don't have too much trouble with it. I did have, for the first time in 40 years, a few weeks ago, I came back from the convention and I was a little rusty, and I ended up in a 30B6 deposition, and it was extremely challenging with a lot of lawyers objecting, and after a long question, a series of objections, they asked me to read it back, and my notes were so ragged. I said, "Can we go off the record?" Because we were on video, and we actually had to take a break so I could have a few minutes to formulate that whole string of text. But in spite of needing to go off the record to be able to type it up, to be able to read it, that was a rare thing. But I think it actually was a great chance to prove that it's all there. I've got it all. I knew I did, even though it was not my shiniest moment. But typically readbacks are not a big challenge for me, and I use a loud voice, and I say question XYZ and answer ABC.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Richard, I'm going to come.
Wait,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Michael,
Can I
go
just
ahead. Yes.
comment on, because what Michael just said, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to use the raise hand thing. I forgot how to do it. What Michael just said is exactly how you do it. You don't panic, you take your time, and you command the room. You just command it and say, can we go off the record? I just need a minute to do it. If you just don't panic and do that, how Michael just described it, I wish I learned it in court reporting school, because it took my whole career to like sort of learn how to do it. But when we were official court reporters, we used to get um, requests from the jury to read back large amount of testimony read back all the time. And so we started doing things like, okay, the defendant, the victim, if they were too difficult for you to read back, like let's say it was messy writing, go work on that while the jury's deliberating and clean that up. And more often than not, that's what the jury wanted to read back. But the first thing we would say is, okay, if the judge would say, well, how long is that going to take you to read back? Well, let's answer it how long it took them to testify. So because nobody knows the answer except for the court reporter. So we would say, okay, well, let's see the defendant, and we would have these charts that I came up with, because if there was like, a death penalty trial, there was, it was a 3-week trial, we would list, there were multiple court reporters on it. So we'd list the witness, we would list the page numbers, the date, and then it was, okay, Richard was in here that day. They want that testimony read back. I could answer it for Richard. I could say, okay, so that person was on the witness stand for an hour. That's, let's say, 40 pages. So I would say to the judge, it's going to take Richard needs to go through it for 10 or 15 minutes to go through the testimony, and then it's going to take him as long to read back as it did for that person to testify. Really, we could read back faster than that, but they don't know the answer to that question. We do. So we're going to tell them that. And so the one time I said they wanted 3 witnesses, I'm like, well, those 3 witnesses took 3 hours. So I'm going to say that it's going to take me 3 hours to read it back once I go through it. And then and again, the judge is looking for the answer because they don't know the answer. You could tell them anything. You could tell them it's going to take you 2 weeks. That would be a little stupid to say that, but it's like, but basically you have to own the answer as the court reporter. They're looking for you for the answer, so just own it and run with it.
So definitely highlighting the difference in situations, because can you read back the last question is
Yes.
way different in a deposition setting than can you read back this witness? And the one thing
Right.
that I highlight as an answer for court in a readback is to give your readbacks a title. I always say, whether if they're asking for an excerpt or the whole thing. So in the example of they wanted a portion of Joe's testimony, I say a portion of the direct examination of Joe Smith by Miss Smith, who, whatever the attorney for the
Yeah.
prosecutor was. So that when now they're asking for, gonna kill my dog. Now they're asking for the cross-examination, and you're one person that's reading it back. You're saying your question and you're saying your answer, but now the question and answers and the read back have switched from first they were questioned by Miss Smith, now they're going to be
Right.
questioned by Mr. Jones. So then I title that in my read back, a portion of the cross-examination of Joe Smith by Mr. Jones. I don't know if I use the same names in that example, but just wanted to point out.
Well, and that's good that you pointed that out because in Florida, for many years, in criminal court, you could only read back the entire testimony. It has to be read back in its entirety. So if they said, well, they're only asking about the red jacket and they want specifically about the question and answer about the red jacket, it didn't matter. You had to read the entire thing. Now in civil court, it's different. And in criminal court now, I think they can hone in on the specifics now. But gosh, for we were reading back all the time in large sums of testimony, and it's at first it's nerve-wracking. It's none of us like to do it, but I actually read back an attorney that hated me because he wanted my audio from another trial, and I said no. He just absolutely hated me until I did a trial with him a week later, and then I had to read back. They were, I'll just say there were people of ethnicity of dialogue that I was not familiar with, but the jury didn't understand it either. And I had to read back these two witnesses. And not only did I read it back, but he ended up winning the case. And so I ran into this attorney that hated me now at a happy hour. I ran into him right after the trial, and he gave me a hug and said, "You literally saved my case. And I am so sorry how badly I treated you because I didn't realize the value of court reporters." And I was like, holy cow, I wasn't expecting that. But it was that. It was like, anyway, it was the first time I think I saw the value in what we're doing, that people, attorneys are actually do get what we do. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Okay, we're moving on to more questions because we're starting to dwindle on our time. What time do you arrive to a job? Joe, I'm going to start with you. What time do you get to your captioning job?
At least a half hour before the job. I have some clients that want me there 2 to 3 hours before the job, so we can get set up before the audience comes, iron out any tech issues that may come up, but at the least 30 minutes before the job starts.
Richard, what time do you arrive to a job? And if you could give court and freelance both.
When I was at the courthouse, I used to like to get there super early, like really early. We had to be there at 8:30. I would try to get there between 7 and 7:20 in the early years, just because I liked the downtime, just to prepare myself for the day, have the office while it was quiet. As time went on, and I lived like 5 minutes away, we still had to be there at 8:30. I would get there like 8:15. Court was at 9. Now in the private world, the civil world, I like to be super early because you never know when you're getting stuck in traffic. So no matter where I'm going, I always buffer in. Like now I'm in Naples, I buffer in like an extra hour at least because I live 2 hours away. And usually it's like I'm getting there the night before if I can, because I don't want to get stuck in traffic in the height of season. But if it was just something normal in town, I still get there an hour before. If it's Zoom, I'm signed on, job dictionary done half an hour before at least. I usually do the job dictionary first before I get on Zoom if it's really that early, or if it's within the half hour. If let's say I did my job dictionary, maybe I did it an hour, maybe an hour and a half before, then I'll wait to put the Zoom on till a half an hour before. But I like to get everybody seems to, or not everybody, but a lot of people wait until they have to get onto the Zoom to try the link. But when you already have the link, you can try it anytime. There's nothing worse than when you're ready to get on and the link doesn't work, and now you have to scramble from the attorney's office or your own office to find out what, who has the right Zoom information.
A lot of important things that need to be done in that extra time that you arrive early. Michael Boulay, what happens if more than one reporter shows up to the deposition?
Well, that only happened to me a couple times in my 40 years, and one time I said to the other reporter who was also from my office, I said, you can have it. I'll go have breakfast or whatever I did on the instead. And the other time, the attorney just said, well, we're just gonna use the one that was here first, and that had been me. So it's a pretty, I think it's a pretty rare occurrence. But I don't, I would say that's a decision you just make at the time and place, and let it sort out and roll with the flow.
So back in the day when I was a young reporter, that used to happen in my town quite a bit. There was competition between the firms, and sometimes two people showed up. So we were taught that the person that was first it was theirs to deny, like that they should be taking it if they were there first. But in today's day and age, we may have issues between the firms that we're working for, and if two competing agencies were called to do the work. So I would imagine that calling the agencies has something to do with it at this time. Matthew, do you have advice to students and new reporters on how to handle that issue?
Basically, the thought process is from that aspect is whomever is taking the deposition, or who's called the deposition, it's their reporter that takes the job.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk just for a second about a new module of Career Launcher, and that is the remote deposition module. Some of the questions that we wanted to talk about as far as workplace etiquette are interacting with our attorneys, and sometimes attorneys take the exhibits. There's a lot of things that happen in a Zoom deposition. So if you have not already accessed it, on YouTube for everyone is the Career Launcher remote deposition video that you can watch. That answers a lot of these questions and some of the things that we're going to talk about. But another resource, and it has just been released, has been out, I think, approximately a week. So make sure that you look that up as well. It's in this, gotta love the dog, in the style of the other modules from Career Launcher, so just specifically dealing with remote depositions. So Joe, I'm going to turn to you next as far as what do you do if a word isn't in your steno dictionary?
If I can think fast, I will try to think of another word that can replace it. Otherwise, finger spelling. Finger spelling. And I love your dog, Meredith.
He's not so loved right now. He's cute, but I mean, come on, I'm on the record here.
But yes, finger spelling if I don't have the word in my dictionary and I can't think of another term to use in its place.
Okay, and then I wanted to ask you specifically, as far as captioning goes, can you talk with others about who you're providing CART for when it's just one consumer?
Short answer, no. If it's a small class, like I said, I haven't done classroom captioning since before COVID. But if it's a small class and I'm sitting with the student, it's pretty obvious that the other students know who I'm captioning for. Sometimes in lecture halls, I'm not sitting with the student. So they don't know, the class doesn't know who I'm captioning for, but yes, I'm not supposed to divulge who I'm captioning for.
Thank you very much. I'm going to address the dog issue one last time. If anyone wonders why I just don't send him away or put him down, it's because of the thunderstorm, and he will not leave me. He's literally trembling. So we're dealing with that. Back to Zoom depositions. We had a question submitted by the audience. What do you do when there are distracting background noises on other people's computer? Do any of my panelists want to field this one? Michael Blake.
Sure. So when there is one participant, it depends who it is. If it's somebody who's in the background, who's just one of the lawyers who's attending remotely, and sometimes they're doing other things and they don't realize they're not muted, and you can hear their keyboard and you can hear their secretary, and you can hear a lot of stuff. So I'll just interrupt and ask that person to mute their device. If it's annoying but survivable, I tend to filter it out and do my job. If it's not possible to do my job, I'll usually interrupt and try and address it however it needs to be addressed, including sometimes if the connection is bad, have them use the phone line to call in instead of the Zoom audio. There's a lot of little tweaks and things we can use. But the bottom line is my job is to get the record. And so if I'm able to do that, I filter out just like in a courtroom, if you have a siren going by, which I've had, you have to filter that out. And sometimes you have to filter out the landscapers or whatever else it is, and just do your job.
Wonderful. Friends, we have just 3 minutes left together tonight, and so I'm going to wrap it up a little bit. We have more Ask Me Anything events coming up. We generally do the last Tuesday of the month, so I'm not even going to give you the dates. The last Tuesday of September is our Ask Me Anything about mentoring. Got it wrong. Ask Me Anything about how do I graduate is the end of September. And Ask Me Anything about mentoring is the last Tuesday of October. The whole calendar's online. It comes to you in emails and in social media constantly. But if you just want to put in the back of your head to join us again and to see cute, fluffy little dogs, we'll be back the last Tuesday of next month. Thank you for your time this evening. Thank you to all of the NCRA board members that are in attendance with us tonight. But I really especially want to thank Jill Parker-Landsman for her tireless efforts on behalf of the Ask Me Anything Task Force and the NCRF Foundation, and especially to the committee that I work with, Sandy Narup, Rich Jermosin, Amy First, Tina Dillon, Matthew Drager, Janet Wood, and Bonnie Shuttleworth. Really appreciate all the help that they give to me in putting together our questions. We had wonderful topics submitted by you audience members tonight, things that you want to hear about. I read every single one, and we will plan our schedule accordingly to bring you the answers to those questions and topics. But one I will mention before we sign off tonight is people asked about information for scholarships and grants. So that information is available to you right today. ncra.org/foundation will bring you to the website. On the right-hand side, it has the information about scholarships and grants. If you didn't know, scholarships are for students and grants are for working reporters. We have different categories. We have new ones coming up. So please, on a regular basis to check what you qualify for, what people can be submitted for. You can check that out at any time, ncra.org/foundation. So we've reached our hour. Thank you so very much for your patience with my a very afraid of thunder dog. And I wish you all the best this fall. And I hope to see you at another Ask Me Anything session very soon. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.